Okay, I think we're good.
Good.
Okay, let's get ourselves going then. This is, I'd like to welcome everybody. This is the City of Ellensburg City Council meeting for the evening of December 7th, 2020. We'll start with a roll call. Beth?
Engel?
Here.
Goodlow?
Here.
Lamb?
Here.
Lilquist?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Tab?
Oh, I'm here. Thank you. We'll need an excused absence for Councilmember Morgan, please.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion and second to grant an excused absence for Councilmember Morgan. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I too vote aye, that motion carries. We have no proclamations. We do have a recognition in a sense, I guess, which I think Brad will lead with.
I will. Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I'm Brad Case, the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Ellensburg. I'm here this evening to celebrate and thank Katrina Douglas for her service to the City of Ellensburg and the seniors of Kittitas County. After 11 years of leading the Adult Activity Center, Katrina will be leaving the city at the end of this month. Under Katrina's direction, our center has truly come to life. She has increased facility use, developed programs for a wide range of interests, and most importantly, created a welcoming and inviting atmosphere for all to enjoy. The value she brings to our Parks and Rec Department team has been equally impactful. As all of you know, working in the public sector can at times be very difficult and challenging. But working in municipal government also provides us with a unique opportunity to positively impact the individuals we serve and the community as a whole, which is something Katrina has done every day. 1 minute she can be found teaching a class at the center, the next mentoring a student intern, or simply just sitting and talking with the senior about their day. As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And while we are sad Katrina is leaving, we are excited for her next opportunity, which is opening a preschool here in town. She's going from one end of the age spectrum to the other. So on behalf of the City of Ellensburg, the Parks and Recreation Department, thank you, Katrina, for all you have done for the seniors in our community and creating a wonderful place for them to enjoy. Good luck, and we will miss you very much.
Yeah, I would just second that. I had an opportunity to work and get to know Katrina a bit in my previous sort of professional life. You know, as folks know, I worked with Elmview. We work with folks with disabilities, and Katrina did some remarkable things around supporting folks to be included comfortably on a regular and ongoing basis for any of the activities that were occurring at the Adult Activity Center. There was also a period of time where we were cooking our senior nutrition meals there. It was not optimal because of space. There was never a sense that we were stressing either her or the facility. She just worked to make it work because she had a bottom line around what was going to work for the people coming to the center. And truly the words that Brad spoke are, I think, reflective of the work that Katrina has done, the energy and attitude that she brought to that position. And also it's a tribute to where we are with the Activity Center today because of the work and investment of herself in that program. So Katrina, if you're listening, I hope all goes well. Certainly, through some of our other conversations, we know there's a need for preschool and daycare. So I think that's a great avenue to explore, and we wish you all the luck.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
So that would bring us to the approval of the agenda. Before we do so, we do have, I believe, we have a fairly full agenda this evening. We also have an item on the agenda that has generated quite a bit of interest. To respect everyone's time, particularly the folks who would like to provide public comment, I would entertain a motion to move item 10, I think it's 10A, which is the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity report and recommendation, to 6D, which would then place it under petition, protests, and communications.
So moved.
Second.
So we have motion and second to move item 10A, the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity Subcommittee report and recommendation to council, to 6D. Is there any further discussion? Other than I appreciate the flexibility of council in doing so. And hopefully that will allow for full public participation and not have to have folks just sit through the regular council meeting. To staff who thought they were going sooner, I apologize, but I think this is a decent way to go. So we do have a motion and second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
can we provide a time limit on that so it doesn't, so we don't have a 5-hour meeting tonight?
Yeah, so there will be two things. Well, I was going to get to that when we got to
Okay.
that agenda item, just so that if people are continuing to come in, we give that explanation at that time. But certainly, yeah, we're going to consider that. So that would move us then to, this process always kind of screws me up.
Mr. Mayor, I think you still need a motion to approve the agenda
Approve.
as amended.
Yeah, that's where I was going. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. That moves us to the consent.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Just trying to organize. So that would then bring us to the COVID-19 update. We're moving through the packet. We would be around 139, but there is no written presentation for either the COVID-19 update or the Chamber Tourism update. So Dr. Larson.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Thanks for having me. So COVID-19 continues, the disease COVID-19 continues to have pretty significant uptick in Kittitas County, similar to what we expected going into the holiday season. Our incident rate as of November 27th is 558.3. If you remember, we had to be below 25 to go into phase 3. That's up from 405.8 last week. And our percent positive is 11.4%, up from 9.3% last week. Our goal for that number is to be less than 2%. We expect, looking at the numbers, to continue to go up over the next week or so with the holiday season. It looks like peaking at about December 2nd at 609. So it looks like it's starting to come down a little bit. If we went to December 5th and just counted backwards 14 days, we're back down into 545. So still significantly high, and which shows kind of broad spread COVID-19 disease in the community. And most of it's in Ellensburg. Almost none of it is related to college students. We had 379 cases of COVID-19 in November in the general community and 49 students. But as you know, the students for the most part have left town. November or December so far, we have 5 cases that were students and 74 community members. We've got quite a few outbreaks related to one church, 3 long-term care facilities, and multiple businesses. The county commissioners did ask me to look at all the cases, and the string that ties them all together is, it doesn't really matter what we're doing, but if we're spending a significant amount of time with others with our masks off, it's going to spread disease. And so it doesn't matter whether we're watching a Seahawks game with friends on the couch, or whether we're eating at a restaurant, or we're going driving to Seattle in a car with others. So still seeing that significant uptick in those 2 weeks of that our incident rate plays a part in. We had 260 cases in those 2 weeks. And if you remember back in July, we said that we thought we could do 50 cases a month at Public Health. So that gives you an idea of what's happening here at Public Health. We have changed our case and contact investigation. We still have part-time case and contact investigators who are doing a great job. We're working a little more closely with the school districts in helping us with case and contact investigations at the schools, working with Central. And we are also prioritizing K through 12 education, healthcare, and especially the long-term care facilities and jails. We're doing a lot more testing. So working with the jail to develop testing using rapid testing weekly in the folks that are working in our local jail. We are testing in all the K through 12 schools on a weekly basis. That just started last week, testing all teachers and staff that are interested, and that's going really well. The long-term care facility outbreaks we've had since we last talked have been very small. So we have one local long-term care facility that has one staff and one resident that are positive. And we have one long-term care facility or one adult family home in the Upper County that has one staff and 2 residents. So those are concerning things for us. For the most part, similar to healthcare, schools, what we're seeing is that what we do outside of our workplaces brings the disease into our workplaces, but it's not really spreading disease for the most part in those situations. So when people are doing appropriate masking and social distancing, we're not seeing much disease spread. We thought we might have had one case that was spread at Lincoln School. And as you probably know, I tested a 5th grade class at Lincoln last week because we had 2 students in that class that were positive, and we couldn't quite put together where one of the students had become positive. We still don't have that put together, but I did test that class again today, and we've had no further positives in that class. So the schools are doing really well. I believe we're going to get to Christmas break without having to close schools. We have not had any outbreaks that have required more than, we had one elementary school special education class that we had to close early in the school year, and one kindergarten class that we had to close early in the school year, but we've not had to close anything else since then. So hospital's still doing really well in regards to ability to keep COVID-19 patients here as well as others. They do have one COVID-19 patient in the hospital that I just looked at currently, but they still have hospital space. They, similar to the school districts, what we're going to end up having as a problem is not a lack of ventilators, but a lack of staff to run the ventilators. So we are running into a similar problem here that they are running into in other parts of the United States, where people are doing their normal behaviors outside of schools or outside of the hospital setting, becoming sick and not being able to be at work. So not spreading the disease in those facilities, but just not having the staff to run. On a uplifting note, we have changed the CDC guidance, or the CDC changed their guidance in regards to quarantine for people that have been exposed to COVID-19. If you have COVID-19, you still need to stay home for 10 days. but if you've been exposed to somebody with COVID-19, the CDC gave an option for 7 days plus a COVID-19 test, or 10 days or 14 days. What we chose to do here was to do 7 days plus a test. Those are not equivalent. A 7 day plus a test is more risky to the community as a whole than doing 14 days. But we are not getting compliance with 14 days as it is. People need to get back to work and back to school. So what a 7 day quarantine with a test does, it allows family members to get back to work. It allows kids to get back to school, still watching closely. And we just put that into place yesterday. So I think that's going to really help, especially people in the lower income bracket that perhaps just have one family member that's working that need to get back to work. So I think that's a really a good move. The thing that hasn't moved yet is the governor's restrictions on quarantine, on 14-day quarantine coming back to Washington State from outside the state. So that's still a recommendation from the governor. The schools have taken that very seriously and are getting some pushback from parents that are choosing to go out of state for the holidays and still wanting to have their kids come back to school. But I think they're figuring that out and moving forward. So that's what I have. We have had a couple very sick people in their 50s that were shipped out from here to the west side, but those two adults are doing really well. So from a overall illness standpoint, I think we're doing well. That's the end of my report. I'm willing to take
Thanks.
questions if anybody has
Yeah.
any.
Nancy, good luck.
Dr. Larson, can you comment on the vaccine and the CDC's timeline and when we might see some in our county?
So Rich Elliott is leading our vaccine planning and distribution. I think he's a really good person for that. He understands that process really well. I would expect to have COVID-19 vaccine in probably as early as next week. And the distribution of that will be complicated. The folks that will be getting that vaccine will probably be even changing in the next week, but it's going to end up healthcare workers, first responders, folks in the nursing home, although there's some questions about whether or not nursing home residents, what kind of immune response they get to the vaccine. So there's some questions about that. Teachers and grocery store workers, so frontline workers, which I think is a really good move in that regards. And I think once it starts rolling in, we are going to have a continual job to try to get that out to people.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions?
Yeah, not sure if you're the right person to answer. I've heard something about a truck being purchased to help with the marketing, and I just want to understand what that was about.
Tristan or I might be able to answer that better than Dr. Larson.
I know
Yeah.
there's been some questions about a truck in Upper County that had been going around with some marketing on it in regards to spread kindness, not COVID, but that's what I know.
Okay. And Tristan or Bruce, do you have anything to add?
I mean,
Well,
that's
just-
about what I know.
Well, I think a couple things, because I think the rumor that started ripping around at one point that I heard in a meeting was that $80,000 went into the truck, and that's just a lie. So I think maybe if we can start right with that initial statement, that the truck is merely one component of a communications effort that's being funded through the county and public health to really support people to spread kindness and and not COVID. The truck was simply one mechanism that the folks that are contracting with the county are using. I mean, I could drill down and get a dollar amount, but I don't believe that it was, I mean, it was not $80,000. I don't think it was $8,000. It was probably much closer to $1,000. There are significant other components to the program that are rolling out, even almost as we speak. There are kits that are going out to businesses that can be utilized. I know the Downtown Association has had the new campaign, and the director and staff there distributed that to our downtown businesses so that there was a consistency around the messaging that was happening. All of those are components of the overall campaign, just basically to stay, to provide a consistent message to people, to provide a consistent message countywide, and to support us to be healthy and hopefully to bring the rates down.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity for rumor control.
Yeah. Any other questions? Again, Dr. Larson, I really appreciate your being here. One other quick one just before we do go, just you'd mentioned Central and the work that they're doing. I think it's important for the community to recognize that when the students do come back from the break on January 5th, all will be tested. I believe it's a mandatory testing, and that they will then quarantine for, I think it's 14 days still. They will be doing all remote classes for the initial 14 days when they return to the community. And then even at that, I think it's 86% of the classes remain online, basically, with 14% of the classes in person. So again, I think it's to recognize that Central's taken a much more aggressive stance than some of the universities in the system. And I think it's paid off in certain ways with some of the numbers that Dr. Larson's provided us around infection with university students. So,
Chris, I was going to mention, I also thought it was, I think it's worth noting and applauding Central's decision, which probably now is 3 months ago, to alter their term dates so the students didn't come back after Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
I think that we should recognize that took some forethought, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
They are continuing to work hard over the break period to fine tune their testing that's going to happen in the spring. And so, yeah, they've been a really good partner. We are still, from public health, asking people to not congregate in large groups, not to celebrate the holidays with people outside their immediate household. That's gonna continue through Christmas and New Year's. I have not heard guidance from the state in regards to what's happening with our 4-week restrictions on activities. If it was our numbers only, our numbers would cause us to think that we should continue with those restrictions. Kathy Lofi, our state health officer, on Friday said that she was starting to see some positive movement in hospitalizations and deaths on the west side. So she saw some numbers starting to go down. I've not seen numbers this week that would correlate with that, but she's not somebody that throws around data lightly. So that's a positive thing. But I would expect that our restrictions will go through the holiday season.
Right.
Hey, Chris, I did have one question for Dr. Larson, since we have him here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, Doctor, on the rates that you quoted, both the current rate and last week's rate, where are we relative to the state? Are our rates higher than the statewide average? Are we doing better than the statewide average, or worse?
No, we're doing worse. I haven't looked at the statewide average recently, but the last I looked, they were in the 160 range ish. We are doing better than some of our neighboring counties like Grant County, Chelan Douglas, Yakima are all kind of on fire, but yeah, our numbers were a lot higher than the west side of the state.
I was thinking the entire state,
Uh-huh.
west, but still
Yeah,
high.
and our numbers are less than Spokane, but they're not looking very good, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good, thank you. Anything else for Dr. Larson? Again, I appreciate you taking the time to update us, provide this information and field questions. So I think it's helpful for everybody that's listening, and it's certainly helpful for us as council members. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for the work. And
All
Tristan.
right. Okay, we'll see y'all later.
See ya. So that'll take us then to 6B. This is the Chamber of Commerce Tourism Promotion Update. I think Madison Ford is doing that.
Yes, I am. And I will share my screen if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Great. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so today I will be just briefly talking about our tourism efforts in 2020 and how our focus areas obviously shifted and our plans and ideas going into 2021. For those of you who don't know, we have a tourism campaign which includes our in-person visitor centers. We're contracted out by the city of Ellensburg, city of Cle Elum, and the county to manage not only bringing visitors here, but more recently really honing in on that traveler messaging and communicating to travelers how to visit Ellensburg and Kittitas County in general in a safe and educated manner. And then giving them a good experience when they're here with our physical material and our visitor centers. But a big part of it is our digital campaign, which you can see here and visit anytime at myellensburg.com. So our focuses for My Ellensburg in 2020 were really about adaptation, as a lot of our partners and businesses have kind of honed in on as well. We publish lists of businesses as they have reopened and educated travelers on who they could visit and during what hours. If they weren't comfortable visiting to Ellensburg, we provided lists, digital lists of different businesses that they could support from home. So like Gallery One's Art to Go kits, different businesses that have e-commerce on their website, even hotels like Hotel Windrow, who offer online gift card purchases so that they could visit later in the year or in 2021. We really focus on providing some self-guided activities, actually adding a whole new page to our website on things to do in Ellensburg without anyone else, for those who prefer to keep their distance, putting out event updates as we've worked with all of our event partners throughout the year to find solutions to their events. And if they simply cannot have their events due to their demographic or just the context of their event, helping update people and then find new ways for those events to be supported. We also are a major communication traveler, DMO, meaning destination marketing, DMMO, so destination marketing management, and also that messaging to travelers on wildfire closure updates, road updates when there are closures on I-90, communicating to travelers in that regard. We've gotten a lot of messages from travelers, which are primarily in Pierce and King counties, just saying thank you so much for letting us know that I-90 was closed or when the canyon was closed, so that they could kind of plan around that. We really promoted virtual elements, so like tours, videos. There was a live from a state park recently in the last few months here. Different businesses checking in with outdoor seating. So really featuring businesses. We've done a couple of interviews via Zoom and safely in person 6 feet apart, talking with businesses that have adapted. Really shown off Ellensburg's history, outdoor dining, and then really honing in on hotel spotlights in the end of the summer as we noticed a major influx in camping, which was also kind of hurting our natural areas. So really honing in on showing off the specialty of all of our different hotel and accommodation options in Ellensburg. Along with this, every week I host a countywide event discussion and often have public health there with me. I don't know if someone from public health is still on the call, but thank you guys for always making it when you can. This is a gathering of the venues and the event organizers from around the county. And we kind of discuss our strategies moving forward. We've worked with the Washington State Festival and Events Association to spearhead how we could run events here in Kittitas County, and worked with a lot of different municipalities around the state to influence a guidebook to reopening and just every step of the state's approach, kind of adapting it, breaking it down every week. And moving forward, this includes helping different businesses put together event safety plans. And, you know, sometimes when there isn't an update, like this morning we had our event update, and there really wasn't one on a state level, but it's just good to sit down with other organizers, talk about PPE. We usually have both of our major downtown associations on the line. You know, the rodeo, the museum, a lot of different partners in our industry where we can get together and talk about the resources that are available and how we can kind of help each other. We also updated the 2021 lodging tax application to make it easier for both the applicants and the reviewers. We hosted workshops online via Zoom for both the reviewers and the applicants, and assisted them in finalizing their applications and being funded for 2021. We also, it's really important for me in the tourism world to offset our impact in our fragile communities. So I work with a lot of environmental organizations to represent Ellensburg and really promote responsible travel. I sit on the Recreate Responsibly Coalition for the state, the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust National Heritage Area Advisory Committee, the Washington State Scenic Byway Committee for our beautiful canyon, and the Washington State Recreation Forum, to be updated on what's going on in our natural world and then be able to communicate that to travelers on My Ellensburg and our county campaign, Central Washington Outdoor. We also produce a bunch of print material, including our Art Walk brochure map, our Barn Quilt map, our fair guide. We have an outdoor guide now, a visitor's guide, a bike map, and a bunch of different other physical material that we work with our partners to put together, distribute to our visitor centers, distribute to different recs around the county. And we also get mail-in requests to send this information out to folks who are interested in traveling, but don't want to be on our website or aren't as familiar with the digital platform. So right now for My Ellensburg, there's a lot of work that goes on behind it. I report monthly to the Ellensburg Lodging Tax Committee on our focus areas, how things are going, our website analytics. And I meet with a team every week to optimize this campaign and really make it the best that it can be. We have organic posts going out on 3 different social media platforms regularly. We do social media management on My Ellensburg and work with other organizations and pages. We're updating our website constantly. We provide a 411 sheet of events every single month. Of course, with COVID, that's been more shifted to the events call until things are a little bit back to normal, but just updating the community on what's going on. We have 2 blog posts per month. We put out 2 newsletters per month. And we also have social media and Google advertising campaigns with rotating creative for various audiences. I'm sorry, it looks like I lost my screen. Can you guys?
It just came back.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't think I said my title either. My name's Madison Ford. I'm the Director of Tourism and Events here at the Chamber. Okay, where was I? So our metrics. So this is really important to measure our success. And we've been really amazed by the metrics year to date for Ellensburg in 2020, despite the obvious impact of the coronavirus. We had over 311,000 users on myellensburg.com, which was actually up by almost 30% year over year, despite the pandemic. We've noticed an actual people going to our website more, people engaging with our social media more, just to get more information, more details as to how to create a safe trip. And also, as we've been more engaging with our partners and just providing more up-to-date information, it's more value to those travelers. 309,000 over that number were new to myellensburg.com. This is 81% of the total users in 2020, January through November. And that is also up 28% year over year. Our top pages are our outdoor activities, a blog on 4 Ellensburg views you can enjoy from the car, our parks and trails page, our eat page on different dining options in Ellensburg, another blog on unique ways Ellensburg businesses go above and beyond. So as you can see, there's a common trend here that people are really looking for safe things to do in Ellensburg, and it's really important for us to just provide that information for them and to also inspire them with new ideas. 80% of our online traffic was on a phone, 13% on a tablet, and 7% on a desktop. So it's really important for us to have mobile-friendly website and social media campaigns. And we also won the following 2020 Tourism Summit Awards through the Washington Festivals and Events Association for our My Ellensburg social media page and a marketing promotional item. So really good to see, even though it's been a challenging year, it really has been a prosperous year for our tourism campaign. We want to welcome visitors to Ellensburg in 2021, a central destination that draws on its extraordinary past to create traditional small town charm. In 2021, we are inviting frequent and first-time travelers to reimagine their Ellensburg experience. This year, travelers can try out new restaurants, get inspired by fresh itinerary ideas, and discover safe activities that inspire their decision to choose Ellensburg as a destination. Focused around finding an escape, trying out new adventures, and gathering once again, this tourism campaign will ignite curiosity and longing for a relaxed environment, which we know our demographic really looks for when they travel to this area. So I'm basically going to quickly go through each quarterly focus in 2021. But of course, this is all just focus areas outside of our regular messaging for business and leisure travel, our safe content with, featuring people in masks and only traveling with friends and family and road trips and all of that is kind of obvious. And that may change depending on state mandates too. So we do work very closely with public health. And it's very important to us to represent that pride in our community through our campaign. But these are just a couple other focus areas. So in Q1, we know that people plan their weddings about a year in advance, and 70% of engaged couples planning to get married in 2020 have postponed their weddings, many rescheduling them for 2021. Revenue is expected to surge at least 30% in 2021 as operators accommodate both new and postponed weddings. And although we've worked a lot with public health to learn that major events will not be open until there is a vaccine and probably months later, an early 2021 push for local vendors and wedding resources can support this industry locally and can help provide heads in beds later in the year. So during this downtime, we've really worked to create a page for businesses and vendors, including venues and bakeries, florists, anything event related, and added this to My Ellensburg so that the information is there very specifically for those who are interested in corporate travel, they're having a wedding, they are having a graduation or a bachelorette party, to provide them that information and make it very accessible to them. Some of our content might be based around girls and guys trips, bleisure, business leisure travel. We are working with partners to create an online wedding expo. This may have a physical element depending on how state guidelines roll out, but providing video tours for venues, and also developing an elopement campaign as a backup option, with an itinerary for folks coming into the area and choosing to elope, while also being able to support Kittitas County businesses. In Q2, we're really going to focus on an in-state escape. This quarterly plan was also reviewed by experts in the industry that we've worked with on a state and a national level. I had Jay Ray, a consulting industry who helped put together my Ellensburg's 5-year strategic plan, actually review this too. And a big part of that plan was the whole idea about Ellensburg being an escape for those who need it. And considering that the post-COVID-19 blowout after the vaccine is done, there still will be this moral confliction in travel. And we want to open this campaign in Q2 with ads that welcome visitors that are often living on the West Side, might be feeling a little dreary. An invitation to come and relax with us, get away. Here they can roam, play. We know that April through June, it often can be dreary on the West Side and the sun starts to come out over here. And it also kind of coincides with working from Ellensburg, inviting folks to bring their families here and do school from Ellensburg. We also are projecting that people will be heading back into the office and corporate jobs full-time once again in the mid-summer of next year. And so this is kind of the last push of where people might be working more from home. We'll be talking about parks and trails, wine tasting, road trip itineraries. These are a lot of our focus areas now, but really pushing it in the spring. I apologize, my computer's being a little slow this evening. In July and September, we are going to be focused on adventure tourism. We've already partnered with the Kittitas County Historical Museum, Iron Horse Brewery, Puget Sound Energy, Olmsted State Park, and Hotel Windrow to develop a self-guided geocaching experience, The Quest to Find Mel's Hole. This is a really fun adventure, and it is going to be fully launching once the snow melts, and we can invite people to actually come and participate in this. If you don't know what geocaching is, it's kind of like, how do I explain this? A physical treasure hunt to find a special prize. This kind of drives people all around Ellensburg to a lot of our major players, businesses, historical pieces to really embrace our culture and learn more about Ellensburg while they're in town, as we know that that really encourages them to come back and visit again. So our content will be focused around newsletters, on outdoor recreation, excursions, with really building out our vendor lists and promoting river rafting in the area, bird watching, our beautiful canyon, anything kind of outdoor recreation wise, and really getting creative with things like the story of Mel's Hole and utilizing our partners to reach their audiences as well. Even though we know that people will be more inclined after the vaccine to get out, we still will be pushing safecations and ways to experience Ellensburg from the car or just as a family unit. At this time, we still see the summer of 2021 being primarily focused on staying with our close-knit family, starting to venture out a little bit, and providing the self-guided activities to do so. In Q4, so about a year from now, we really see multi-generational travel becoming a bigger component in our tourism campaign. 32% of people who put off a milestone trip in 2020 say that they will take a vacation in summer 2021. And a lot of them will be reconnecting with their loved ones, especially older ones, on multi-generational trips around the holiday season in 2021. Being the first year that families can safely and comfortably gather once again, we will focus on pushing activities for the whole family, holiday event updates, and resources for small group getaways. We're going to have a big focus on art and culture, togetherness and family closeness, activities for grandparents and grandchildren to do together, like our Burn Quilt Trail, hikes in the area, kid-friendly activities. We really want to break down our history in ways that are very simplified, kind of like a children's book, moderate for the average traveler, and then a very detailed version of our area stories for the historian and the family. We also really want to push midweek trips around the holiday break, and just invite people to come out and gather here, that it's safe to do so. Really, again, push that our businesses are inviting people to come and experience Ellensburg and providing safe PPE and just the friendliness of our downtown businesses and our businesses in general to make Ellensburg a safe place to be. Another thing worth adding is we're always adapting our events. This last weekend, we had a parade out in Cleveland where it was reverse style and people were driving past the floats, and it was so successful. We really are primarily focused on creating events that are safe and helping all of our partners do the same. We are hosting a virtual Winter Hop Brew Fest, which is January 16th. We've partnered with a bunch of breweries around the county this year to create some behind the scenes content in an online portal. So like Q&As, interviews, and we are creating a beer box with a beer from each brewery so that folks can purchase that, pick it up the weekend before, and then drink it at home while experiencing this content online. It's a great way to connect with the community and support our local craft beer industry, as well as encourage follow-up tourism to Ellensburg. So thank you so much. Again, my name's Madison. I left my email here. I'm always open to ideas, inspiration, constantly meeting with people and seeing other ways that we can kind of show off different small segments and components of Ellensburg. I invite you all to follow us at My Ellensburg on pretty much all social media, or check out our website. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I think in the interest of time, I'm going to ask Council if you have questions to just go ahead and email them to Madison.
Sorry, that was kind of a long presentation.
Well, yeah, and we know that we have a looming conversation. So, and not a problem. It's good information, and I think it's good for us to know. And recognizing that we invest our lodging tax dollars in exactly the work that you're doing. So again, I mean, it's a mighty effort, and it seems to continue to be growing, and recognizing the environment in which you operate. And I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. So with that, let's move on down. We're at boards and commissions. This is 6C, in which I think what we might be able to do, we had I believe the way we can do this is we have some folks who have decided not to re-up. We do have 3 reapplications, Hannah Tower for the Affordable Housing Commission, David Carnes for the Building Appeals Board, and Josh Hackney for the Public Transit Advisory Committee. So I would start by just entertaining a motion to reappoint those 3. I've actually worked with both Hannah and Josh on those 2 committees. They both contribute They're doing their homework, and I think they're good voices to have on both the Affordable Housing Commission and the Public Transit Advisory Committee. And I'm still not clear that the Building Appeals Board has met in the last 22 years. So if I could we get a motion to reappoint those three?
I'll move to approve the 3 reapplications.
Second.
So a motion and second to reapprove the reapplication of Hannah Tower to the Affordable Housing Commission, David Carnes to the Building Appeals Board, and Joshua Hackney to the Public Transit Advisory Committee. Any further
Mayor-
discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, I have one thing I wanted to bring to this discussion, and I know you're really excited to move into later in the agenda. So I thought maybe it was something we could put on a future agenda, but I remember Councilmember Lilquist had mentioned in the past about when people get reappointed, often those vacancies aren't announced to the general public. And it just got me thinking about if you had interest in participating in one of these commissions, that maybe we should be advertising when the term is up in the same way we would when somebody resigns, to just give I mean, usually there's not an overwhelming demand for people to volunteer on the commissions, but it seems like maybe that would be a good practice to put into place to open it up to other people who might be interested.
No, I think that's a good observation, and it certainly would not be a difficult practice for us, I don't think.
So
Well,
I don't
and
know if
keep
we
in-
want to have that discussion now or just put it on for future business.
Well, Nancy, you're gonna,
Well, I was just going to say, anyone can apply at any time for any board or commission. And I hope, and maybe that's the message we need to send, is just, and then when there's, like with these reapplications, I'm assuming that there was no one else that had applied that wanted those positions, but I could be wrong. I thought we would be forwarded the new applications as well as the reapplication.
My
If there were
understanding,
any.
and Lori or John, this is probably more in their territory, but my understanding is if somebody had applied this year, then their applications would have been brought forward at the same time with the reapplication.
Yeah.
But I also am of the understanding that you might get a notification like pushed out to you if there's a vacancy and you're interested. And that's the part that I don't know if those people are being notified. I'm not exactly sure how that works. So that's where I just thought we might want to readdress this.
yeah, I think I think we can. I mean, realistically, this is almost all the terms are up now so we would probably just push it into the next year. But I think the point is a good one. We often, people, if they simply reapply, we don't explore who else might be qualified, willing, able, and wanting to step in. And so that we really don't have, so I think looking at that process is not the worst thing.
Okay. But
Um,
yes, the vote.
Okay, so we do have a motion and second to reappoint the three as mentioned. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. We did have Christine Kruger and Nathan Meintz who stepped away from their positions. That leaves us then with, to maybe to Stacy's point, but we do have a vacancy on the Affordable Housing Commission. And also then on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And was Christine, what category was she on lodging tax?
She is a collector.
Okay, so that's kind of a hotelier or
Yeah.
someone that's
So
engaged
we
in the
actually have,
hospitality.
yeah, there's 2 receiver positions vacant right now, and then now the hotelier. So there'll be 3 vacancies total.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was not looking at that correctly. So we actually have a vacancy on the Utility Advisory Committee. We'll have a vacancy on the Affordable Housing Commission. 2 looks like, so we would have 1 vacancy on the Building Appeals Board. There is a vacancy on the Ellensburg Business Development Authority. They're doing business as Centrifuge. And a vacancy on the Landmarks and Design. So we actually have quite a number right now. And the Landmarks and Design might be a stipulated position too. I'm not sure.
Yes, it's a design professional.
Okay, thank you. So if there are folks that are here as participants or just simply watching, there are a number of opportunities to connect, provide your input, and provide advice and support for council. With that, I don't think we need to do anything else with that, right? So that would bring us then to the new 6D. 6D was the previous 10A in your agenda. So if you were following along, this would be in page 189. And that would be the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Subcommittee. It's the report and recommendations to council. There is an agenda report connected to that, and I believe that Nancy Goodlow will present.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nancy Goodlow, City Council, and a member of the IDE Subcommittee. In June of 2015, Council directed, has scheduled discussion of the inclusion, diversity, and equity in Ellensburg and how we could strengthen Ellensburg as a community by engaging the community, making a lasting commitment to equity and diversity for the community, and ensuring that city council, city government internalizes principles and has a staff who is competent in these concepts. Council at that meeting appointed a subcommittee made up of myself, Mayor Tab, and Council Member Lilquist. And we were charged with identifying opportunities to move the IDE initiative forward and to bring recommendations for consideration to City Council. Subsequent to that appointment, the subcommittee met and decided on a listening tour format. We modeled this a little bit off of the neighborhood cafe experience that we've had in the last year or so. Only instead of having a discussion, we wanted to just listen to what the community had to say and what it was like to live in Ellensburg as a person who is a member of a marginalized community. We developed 5 questions that we used with every group. We conducted a total of 17 listening sessions. Most of those were virtual on Zoom. We had 3 or 4 in-person meetings at City Hall where we could have 6 participants, and then we had 4 city staff people or the subcommittee and our staff person. And then we had a survey that we could use for people who wanted to attend, but for some reason or other they couldn't attend. And I believe we collected 4 or 5 surveys from the group. We listened to communities of color, from the LGBTQ community, people with disabilities, seniors, and persons from religious minorities. Every person brought their own unique perspective, and all were excited about the opportunity to share their experiences and to be more involved with the community as a person who can be involved and make contributions to Ellensburg. Upon completion of the tour, we worked with our staff support person and put together the report that you have before you tonight. We are hoping that people will get on board to help us with some of the ideas that we have, and so that in the future Ellensburg can be more inclusive, it can be more welcoming, and we can structure more equitable systems so that residents can reach their full potential. The recommendations that are in the report provide a framework for future council actions and community action to become the kind of community we'd like to become. We essentially have three major recommendations. One is to create an IDE advisory commission. A second is for the subcommittee to continue to work and interact and talk with the groups like the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Association, with the CWU, with the school districts, and share what we heard in each of those areas in the hopes that it will help the businesses, help the school district, and help Central, and they can become stronger partners in our efforts. And then the third major recommendation is that we implement, charge the city manager to implement programs to train our staff and make appropriate changes in programming and advertising and marketing and language, particularly the bilingual aspect of the languages that we use, so that more people can be aware of what's going on in Ellensburg in the programs. They can be empowered and helped with services that we provide, and we can be a stronger community government for this city. The recommendation from the subcommittee is that council review and discuss and ask questions and support the report, accept the report and the recommendations that are included in it. And we would be happy to entertain questions.
Thank you. So before we dive into council questions, my guess, if I were a betting person, would be that there are a number of folks that would like to provide some public input on the report. So I think that as we go into this, there'll be a couple things. I think that I would so there's a couple things we can do. I think that anybody who would like to provide public comment at this point will be given 3 minutes to state your case or state your concerns, issues, or support or observations about the report. I would ask as we're going through this that if you're wanting to give public comment, that the comment that you provide in the interests of the others who may want to speak, that your comments not be redundant. So in essence, if you're the third or fourth person that said, you need to do this, or this was good, or I would ask that you hold those comments, recognize that those comments have already been heard by council and others, and allow others to speak who may have a unique perspective to offer. To Councilmember Locust's observation, we'll set about 30 minutes for folks to provide us initial comment and then have council discussion. And then see where we go in terms of either council's discussion or action. I would ask people as we're going through this to recognize that really, I want to just reinforce for a moment Nancy's observation and draw attention to the recommendation. That really, there are three components of this recommendation, of the recommendations that are put in front of council this evening. One is the opportunity to create an inclusion, diversity, and equity subcommittee. That subcommittee and who makes that up, how that's structured is not to be decided this evening. The subcommittee specifically chose to provide a charge for the committee without attempting to define the makeup of the committee, the length of terms of the committee, its interaction, but it needs to be stressed that it is an advisory committee, that's similar to other committees and boards and commissions that we would have throughout the city. So the reapplications, we just talked about the Affordable Housing Commission, Utility Advisory Committee, Lodging Tax Advisory, all of those are advisory to the city council. This would be a similar structure. We have not designated whether there would be a council liaison or chair. But again, I just want to make that clear. I also want to be very clear as we're having this conversation that there is nothing in our recommendations as a subcommittee that indicates we are dictating to businesses what they can or cannot do. The report reflects what we heard. There are opportunities that we believe exist for businesses. The second part of that where we talk about moving forward would simply to be continuing a conversation that we've already initiated with the school board so that they're aware of what we heard from folks within parents and within the school district and the experiences that their sons and daughters have had. We have initiated conversations with the Chamber of Commerce. We will meet with the Downtown Association. And again, the intent there is not to tell anyone what they can, can't, should, or shouldn't be doing, but merely to share what we have heard from individuals who may or may not feel comfortable in businesses in this community. The fourth part is really the piece that speaks to the city manager, but those are the areas around which we believe the city has more, that we as council have more direct control and impact over. So when we talk about a citywide training program, that is for city staff, it is for city council, it is for those, the institution of the city. It is not intended, nor ever has been intended, for us to imply that we are simply going to go to our community and mandate that everyone take some type of training around inclusion, diversity, and equity. Not the intent. It won't happen. But the third component of our recommendation does focus on those elements that we feel the city has the ability to manage and control. So when we speak to ensuring equity and diversity in the city's recruitment, hiring, and retention processes, those are processes over which we, the city manager, our human resources department, where we advertise, to whom we advertise, how we connect with folks, are all components that we feel as council, as the subcommittee, that the city has the opportunity to have impact over. So with that, hopefully, that was more words than I wanted to use. I would say that.
Can I add?
Sure. And if I may, so for folks who have not participated in this process previously, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, you should be able to raise your hand if you would like to speak. If you would like to speak and you raise your hand, I'll recognize you. And then we'll go from there. Okay, sorry, Nancy.
That's fine. I just wanted to reiterate that if the council authorizes us to move forward, what would happen would be we would bring back, say, an ordinance that would create a commission. That doesn't happen tonight if we agree to do that. It happens sometime in the future. We just are able to, our idea was that the subcommittee would work on that and work out the details and bring back an ordinance to the city council. The council can then deliberate and decide whether they want to create that council or modify it in some way. The other items as well, if there's budgetary impact of any kind from any of the recommendations, that would show up again on the council's agenda as an item that we would need to deliberate on, because it would have to be included in the budget. So and the city manager, nothing would happen without discussions with the city manager. If there was a budgetary impact, we would need to know that before we move forward. So these are recommendations. Even if the council accepts these, it doesn't mean that it happens. It's the beginning of the discussion.
Thanks. So let's see if there are folks in the audience that would like to address council. Okay, so I see Stacy Hammond's hand is raised. Again, if you will, name and address. Please.
Yeah, before
yeah.
Can I ask a preliminary question? Is this the normal 3-minute comment, or is this only on this particular issue?
I'm
It's only
not clear what you just asked.
Well, what I'm saying is normally you have a 3-minute comment section. Can we speak to anything non-agenda, or is this
No,
only this
so this is
particular
not-
issue?
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So this is specific to the report and the recommendations.
Okay, I would like to speak to this, but after others, please, because I'm going to formulate my thoughts now. I had to make sure I wasn't having to squeeze the two things in. Thank you.
Yeah, no, there'll still be an opportunity for comment on non-agenda, which is what Stacy's speaking to. That actually will come right after this. So that would be, I've got Teresa Plough.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I don't like going first, but I will. Let's see. I think I'm gonna read.
Okay, I need your, Teresa, if I may, can I get your name and address?
Oh, sorry. Teresa Plough, 140 Woodhouse Loop, Ellensburg.
Thank you.
I have read, carefully studied, and discussed this Ellensburg City Council Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Subcommittee report with many community leaders over the last 4 days that are not employees of city government, and with many local residents that do not think becoming a full partner with CWU is at all necessary to be flexible in their approach as a community to continue offering the small town character and welcoming hospitality and unique experience we offer to visitors and members of our community. Your listening tour participants felt like that was an aspect of our town. I believe that we can trust the community members, the civic leaders, rodeo board, etc., to sit down and always want to include everybody in this town because it's just the way they are. You might have fringe groups out there that, just real fringe groups that are different than the majority of the community here in this town. The people that I spoke with felt like, actually they seemed to be suspicious about and confused why you wouldn't just sit down at a table with them and cross out the names of the people, but provide maybe a voice disguised and no picture to the Zoom, full transparency of what the people who felt marginalized and didn't feel included, in all their great suggestions. We want to hear those. There's so many people in this community who want to hear those. We want to be able to do that without more bureaucracy being added to the government, more cost. And although you have described, Mayor Tab, how your intent of this operating, the way under recommendations, further recommendations on how the IDE operates, commission is alarming. Ordinances can be passed that seriously change this community to be a clone of CWU. And you even said in the report someplace that CWU is much different than the community members. I think we're doing great. I think we can sit down at a table without creating a huge bureaucracy and asking taxpayers for a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you. That's your 3 minutes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next person in the queue I see here is Tylene Carnell.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can actually.
Okay, good. Tylene Carnell, 208 South Ruby, Ellensburg. I'm probably not going to take my full 3 minutes, but I just want to thank you, Mayor and City Council, for beginning this conversation. I read the report. I looked at the report. I think that I think it's a great start to future conversations. And as somebody in this community that is a part of those marginalized communities, we might have some folks in the community that don't necessarily believe that there are things that happen in this community, but just because somebody doesn't see them or doesn't do them doesn't mean they don't exist. So I look forward to future conversations, and this very environment right here is one of the reasons why I love living in Ellensburg, to have these kind of conversations about making our town more equitable. I've lived here for 20 years, and as I've said to many people, I think I have found home. And this is part of the reason why. So again, I just want to commend you on it's been a very challenging year, but I just appreciate the efforts that you've taken and this report that you're putting out forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next person I've got in is Landis Hansen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Landis Hansen. I am in 1015 East 18th Avenue, Ellensburg. Do you want my apartment number, or is that necessary?
That's good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So thank you for reaching out to diverse communities. I was a part of a few of those discussions, and I really appreciate that. In response to a few of the comments that one of the community members made, obviously we cannot maintain the status quo that continues to allow people in our community to use racial epithets, throw suspicious and hateful glances, and fly Confederate flags in our community. Education and change is needed in order to have an inclusive community. It is hard to have a grasp on the gravity of social divides between minority and majority groups without the lived experiences of those divides. And I would therefore think that it is paramount to make sure that students, as the most diverse group in Ellensburg, and the group that makes up more than 50% of our population here in Ellensburg, make sure that they are included in the IDE subcommittee, in order to more accurately understand and mend the social divides here in our community. I think that the core focuses that the IDE came up with are amazing, and I would recommend that we maintain all of those. Especially, I appreciate our focus on religious minorities, a group that is often overlooked in a lot of these discussions. And a group that here in Ellensburg, we don't have a lot of places, diverse places to worship. And so it is a marginalized group, especially here. Yeah, I appreciate the effort to ensure that we are all taken care of, and to attend to the needs of diverse people. And I would recommend that, again, we cater to the needs of students, because often I feel that we are overlooked in this community, even though we pay taxes here, we live here, we shop here, and we are just as important as any other member of the community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next person I've got who'd like to speak is Shauna Kessler, or Shayna.
Hi, Shayna Kessler, 1508 North B Street, Ellensburg. To echo Landis's sentiments, I work at the university. I moved to Ellensburg with the intention of making this place my home, and have experienced a lot of things that are concerning in the short time that I've lived here as a marginalized member of the community. So I do want to echo to what Landis said, that it is important that we include members of the university community in these conversations, that we don't always feel like we are a part of Ellensburg, despite the fact that many of us are in fact a part of this community. And that includes the students who make their home here for 4 or 5 or sometimes even longer, several years at a time. It's a disservice to them to not count them as part of the community members that we have present here. I would like to pose a question about the report, which is on page 7 of the report. There is a line that says, an explanation of what the Black Lives Matter movement is. As a person who is part of the movement for Black Lives and an activist in this community, I am appreciative that you included that it is a decentralized social movement advocating for Black lives and against police brutality. However, I am concerned that you also felt the need to include the line that many know it is an organization founded by Marxists with an anti-police platform. This is not necessarily reflective of the movement for Black Lives and is talking about the organization that is registered to the trademark Black Lives Matter. So I would like to pose the question to the subcommittee for why they felt the need to include that phrasing when it has often been a phrasing that has been used against activists in this community who have stood for those lives.
Thank you. I would just, did you have more that you wanted to add? We won't respond directly at this point. This is just really to hear, to take the public comment. But
That's
when
fine.
we get into council discussion, we can probably address that.
Thank you.
Is there anything more that you'd like to add?
No, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The next person I see in the queue is Betty Douglas.
Okay, I unmuted.
No, we can hear you. You're
My
good.
My name is Betty Douglas. I live at 315 West Helena Avenue. And I want to reiterate that it's appreciated all the work that has been put into this and all the hearings. I wish the hearings would have been open. I felt that we were really being blacked out, the whole information. They should have been informed. There was at least 2 questions that I know of, went to different members or to the whole council saying when and where are these meetings. We never heard when. I do think that this 30 minutes given for this discussion is proving that it's an important enough discussion that it also needs to have an open hearing, open up to all the community, held at a larger hall so that there can be more discussion of it. And I disagree with one thing that the mayor said. I want to say that most of you are old enough to have been in school studying history in World War I, the Korean War, and Vietnam. Part of that history was communism in Germany and the spread to Asian countries. And remember the concern to our country, our schools, and our families regarding government taking over and controlling our lives. And right now, Governor Inslee would love to have our state in communism and be the dictator king. And is this where Ellensburg is heading with the IDE? I don't think IDE has any real place on the city council. It needs to be someplace more like the Chamber of Commerce to be able to put this together. I don't think the council should be putting together a committee to be able to control this, or not control, but put forward this whole IDE concept. It's controlling where we go, where we eat, where we socialize. And even though Mayor Tabb said that it's not going to be setting up controls for businesses, it is, because that report said that businesses need to be more welcoming. So they're going to be controlling the businesses, telling the businesses they have to be more welcoming. And I don't think that that's the place that the city council needs to get caught up in. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you. At this point, I don't see anybody else with their hand raised. Is anybody else? Okay, Stacy Hammond.
Okay, yes, thank you for my time. Can you hear me, or I'll probably come off my head?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
good.
can you hear me well now?
Yep.
Okay. So, I'm glad that I was able to speak to this portion also, but my concern, could really, I don't know, I could go any way what I want with this, but I think the most important thing for the public to hear, if they're listening, and I really mirror Betty Douglas's statement about an open town hall, It concerns me, especially during times of COVID, when people are at home, very divided in our nation, to be making divisive decisions from the Zoom can't right from your offices here. People can't figure out how to get places. And even if they know, they might be concerned to do so. Okay. So what's the rush, honestly, to do it right before Christmas and not in what did Dr. Larson speak or someone spoke to, no, it was Madison Ford. So she's certainly not an expert, but to the middle of the summer where things may get back to somewhat normal, where you could have these kind of discussions. There's absolutely zero reason to be making huge, potentially budgetary decisions right before Christmas in the middle of a pandemic and an economic fallout. I will speak quickly to say that, as you may know, I have filed a personal lawsuit myself against the Downtown Association, its board members, and Trip Muldrow, who for some reason is mentioned by name
Okay,
in this
Ms.
agenda.
Stacy, I need you to focus on your comments or observations.
You
about
brought
the
up
report.
the Ellensburg Downtown Association, sir. I'd appreciate not being cut off. I am suing them personally because of
Okay,
discrimination.
Ben, this needs to stop.
It's based on discrimination
I'm going
against
to
me.
ask,
So you're
I'm going
asking.
to ask our support to cut you off. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to approach? Okay, again, I appreciate the feedback. We also have had a number of, I would suggest, just a quick comment. Someone just mentioned about the offices for city council. We don't have offices. We don't actually have a full-time gig doing city council. Most of us have worked full-time jobs and also served on council. Some of us are now retired and not, but just recognize that we don't have offices at City Hall. This is not a full-time job. So I would, let's go into council discussion then. Just as we're doing this, just a couple things, just quickly to respond to Shayna's observation about Black Lives Matter. We felt that it was important because both concepts, I think, and Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong, both of those iterations of Black Lives Matters have become part of the national conversation as well as the local conversation. We clearly, as we discussed Black Lives Matter earlier in the summer, had a number of people come forward indicating that they believe the Black Lives Matter was a Marxist organization. We also had a number of people come forward who indicated that Black Lives Matter was in fact a movement without that kind of rigid organization. So we felt it important to recognize both sides and both perspectives in the report. Council.
Okay, I can go first. I had a couple takeaways from the report. One, I was impressed in your guys' ability to take comments from 100 people and to boil that down and give us something substantial. I understand, though, that there probably was a really common thread because I noticed that in the cafes that we did last year as well. And so, so that made sense to me. But thank you for putting the work in. I have always seen this as an opportunity to kind of own what the city's part in equity has been, or lack of equity. I don't associate with a group that I consider marginalized. And so it's as helpful to me to have a commission give me recommendations on where my blind spots are as I see a hotel owner giving me recommendations on where they want lodging tax dollars spent. So I see that as a benefit. Now, in a perfect world, I'm hoping that this commission gets together and says, your hiring practices are flawless and you're publishing all your information in every possible manner, and you're just doing a great job. And so then the need to make those changes would be irrelevant, but I have a feeling that there's some of those things aren't happening. And so just because nobody's perfect. And so I think that I have a hard time finding where the harm is in putting a commission together of community members that can say, have you guys considered this? So honestly, after reading the report, I did notice the 2 definitions to BLM and several instances where I thought, wow, you guys really took a step back and tried to give an unbiased perspective of this. And I appreciated you just gathering all the data and presenting it. And also noticed that some of the data that was gathered was maybe not relevant for our role on city council. I think that maybe the community has misunderstood that we intend to take action on those pieces, like Central, the school district, the businesses, where I kind of took your report to mean that you're just simply going to pass that information on to those entities so that they could take what action they saw fit or not. But I am excited and looking forward to putting a commission together so that we can just do our best as a city, entity, employer, community, a group that serves this community and doing our best in that way. So I took some notes on people that commented that I just wanted to maybe speak to. I was confused by the notion that this would change our relationship with Central. If anybody had any insight as to that, I don't think that there's any formal agreement or anything that's coming out of this that really changes our relationship with CW at all. Obviously, we strive to partner with them in the same way we strive to partner with other organizations in the community. And wanted to just address that we don't have the ability right now to have a large in-person forum, just based on, even this meeting, obviously, I would love to meet in person and be back at the dais and see people face to face and have these kind of discussions in person, but that's not possible. So this is kind of what we're left with at this point. So that's my 2 cents. And again, just want to thank everybody for the contribution they made to this.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Other comments, observations?
I'll just add briefly, I also would echo Councilmember Engel's words of appreciation for the subcommittee. I think it represents an extensive effort. I think though, I think we can expect that it's just the beginning of the conversation. And I look at the subcommittee, the formation of the more formal group as the vehicle to facilitate those conversations within the community. And I think along the same lines that Councilmember Engel emphasized, I don't necessarily see the council leading all those discussions. I think it's for the benefit of the community, and the participation of the community is essential. I think though we are providing some guidance and direction, and as the mayor indicated earlier, the goal is not to dictate. That has never been a goal. And I think, but we do feel an obligation to make our community as good as it can be. And it's a good community, but I think if we are honest, we could admit that it could be better. It's great, but it still could be better. So I'd like to see us take the lead on this. I think the effort is scaled appropriately for our size of community and the composition of our community, recognizing we've got a diverse mix, but still a relatively small community with a university in a rural setting. But I think it's good. I think it's overall good. And I agree. I think that the structure of these meetings is really not really something we can control beyond what we're already doing, the limits on public conversations. I just think that as the committee's work moves forward, I would like to see anyone who has an opinion about this subject come forward and participate in whatever format is made available, because I don't think this is a one and done conversation. I think this is something that we're going to be dealing with forever. And I think it's a difficult conversation. People have difficulty engaging in it for any number of reasons. And I think ourselves included, I would say everyone comes into it with a challenge. So that, and I just think that this is the beginning, so thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
I just quickly, and because also my children are entering, so I'm going to go as quickly as possible. Thank you for your work, subcommittee. I appreciated the report. And when I listen to some of the comments that are opposed to the report or the recommendations, I just, I remind myself, I would remind others that as individuals that are not part of marginalized communities, as non-marginalized individuals, we don't get to decide whether or not we're allies, right? Our marginalized communities get to tell us if we are their allies. We can't tell them that we are their allies, but we can act, we can take action and prove that we're here to make a difference. So, I appreciate larger conversation, but I would just like to remind myself and others that, we don't get to tell people that we're here for them, but we can sure try to show them that we are. And that to me is a community.
Great, thank you. Okay, council. I think we're at a point. Does anybody else want to make any observations? I think we could entertain a motion to accept the report and recommendations as presented.
So the recommendations as presented, I had kind of maybe more particular requests than how they were laid out in the report. Just that I wasn't sure exactly what that meant the next step was. And so my motion would be that the recommendations in the report were given to staff to then come back to us with more developed information on how those would be carried out, with if there's any budget implications, not just like, yes, let's sign off on a training program. Yes, let's sign off. I'm assuming that's what you meant, but it's not detailed in there. So I just wanted to include that.
Yeah, so let's, we can make a motion if you'd like. So I think that we can clarify that within the motion. From my perspective right now, the process, to your point, I think would be is if we accept the recommendations, then we are directing staff to come back with an implementation plan, which council would then review and approve. By the same token, I believe with the commission, the process historically has been, so my context would be the Affordable Housing Commission, which was new, or the Public Transit Advisory Committee, which was also new, that we would, in accepting the recommendation, that would trigger staff to begin the development of an ordinance, which would define basically the charter or the role of the commission, the structure of the commission, all those pieces. And then we have input, and we can do it a different way. We could ask for the ordinance to simply come back because we know there's 2 readings. We could also ask for a draft ordinance to come before us for feedback, and then move to a first reading after we've had that conversation. But in my mind, by adopting the recommendations, we are setting in motion the process that you just articulated.
Okay, that I can get behind.
Okay, and we can define that within the motion also in terms of conversation and direction.
Yeah, and I think that the language is accept the report rather than adopt it.
Accept the report
and recommendations.
Yeah, let's, maybe I need to make sure that accepting the report and recommendations is sufficient. So that might be a legal question. Either John or Terry.
I think which I would recommend for council is that the motion be specific, because you have the recommendations starting at page 219 of the agenda packet, and there are some headings, and then there's a lot of number of paragraphs throughout that. And so it'd be helpful for staff to know in terms of adopting the recommendations, the specific recommendations that would be adopted through the report.
So let me ask Terry, if I'm getting this, are you saying that we can accept the report, but then specifically adopt the recommendations as outlined on page 219?
Yes, I think, and that's part of the recommended action in the report itself is adoption of the report and recommendations. I'm just requesting that staff will need direction on the specific recommendations that you're including as part of that, because there's a lot of them in those 2 pages.
So if I'm hearing you right, I'm hearing you want one motion to say, move forward with developing an ordinance for the commission, perhaps, and another another motion that would say the subcommittee could continue their work with having continued discussions regarding the findings and what we heard, and another regarding what we would be asking the city manager to do to implement those recommendations.
Yeah, I think I could simplify this. You have a recommendation number 1 on page 19, and then you have 2 other recommendations that aren't numbered in their headings on page 220. And each of those have their subparagraphs. I think if you were to entertain a motion just to adopt those 3 recommendations along with the included language, that would be the direction that would be needed.
Yeah.
Yes, my question would be, I would assume that as the, whether it's staff or whether it's the commission is formed, as the work continues, there's likely to be more refinement on these recommendations. So I would like to make sure that there's enough flexibility to work with these rather than have it sort of narrowly defined. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't.
Within the adoption of the 3 recommendations as
yeah, I mean, we're not locked into any of this.
Right.
I mean, at this point, if we're adopting the recommendations, I think it's basically saying we have a recommendation. That's what it is. So I think what my perception would be, I'm trying to get to the page. I'm very cumbersome.
219.
No, I understand what page.
Okay.
I can't. I got too many machines to try and track all this. Sorry. But I mean, my thought was simply that this is the first, as you indicated earlier, David. This is the first step, and also in my response to Stacey's observation to me, and I don't know if this is what Terry's saying or not. We may look at this, and the charge that we're recommending at this point is not ultimately where we end up. Right, but it's simply a report with recommendations, and we're adopting those recommendations as a starting point for the conversation.
That sounds good to me.
Is that? I know I would look to both Nancy's, but I think.
Yeah, the recommendations are a part of the report.
That seems reasonable. I mean, we make amendments to the budget regularly.
No, exactly. I mean, I guess that's my point. This is not cast in stone, and to other individuals' observation about public input and an ongoing community dialogue. This is part of the community dialogue. This is, and again, David, as you indicated, to me, this is the first step.
Sure.
None of this is necessarily locked in. If the basic recommendation is that we would create and sustain an inclusion, diversity, and equity commission for the city of Ellensburg.
Sure. Yeah.
So our wording that would be charged is, to me, that becomes potentially part of the ordinance, which we would take public input on, which we would then have our own input on, and then ultimately we're going to adopt the ordinance that basically provides the framework for the commission. Similarly, the subcommittee, I think we're just looking for blessing if we adopt it, so that we can move forward and have continued conversation with this as our context. So the conversations we've had have been, this would provide a blessing for us to go forth and meet with the equity committee of the school board and the superintendent. It would support us to go talk to the chamber, but also begin to do outreach potentially with our civic groups to talk about what we heard and the opportunities that exist, as well as the challenges. And then the third one to me was to Stacey's point, is that we're not saying that any of that would be done yesterday.
Yeah.
We're simply saying that as we went through this, these are the pieces that we heard and that in our conversations we believe will help us internally as a city to do better around those three values. And it may be that some of them required more resources than we have at this point in time, and we need to recognize that. But by the same token, there may be others where we can put metrics to them and in 3 months ask for a report back saying, what do our hiring practices now look like, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with
Okay,
that.
so
I was just.
I would also anticipate timelines from,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, we can't do this in 6 months. We can't do it in a year. It's a starting point for probably a 4 or 5 year process at least to get a structure.
And to a certain extent, we don't, I mean, I would expect the commission to be engaged in that conversation. To Tristan's point. I mean, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we're a bunch of white people sitting here kind of discussing this.
Right.
well, and that would also, once the commission's formed, it moves to formal meetings with open meetings and public comment
Right,
and all.
right, exactly.
I can take a stab at this if we want to try.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I move accept the report with the recommendations for staff to come back with us for an ordinance reflecting recommendation number 1 in the report. For the subcommittee to continue their work as shown in the report on page 220, and for staff to come back to us with strategies for implementation of the items listed at the bottom of page 220.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I think that was Tristan. So we have a motion and second to accept the report as presented and to adopt the recommendations. Recommendation 1, which is numbered, would be direction to bring back to staff utilizing the actions or the charge as outlined to bring back an ordinance constituting an IDE Equity Commission. That the subcommittee would continue work by reaching out to the elements listed on page 2, I think that's 220 now.
Yes.
And that staff would come back with strategies for implementation for the numbered items 1 through 12 on page 220 and 221. Okay, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Oh my, you know, it's a big deal, folks, what this conversation is. It's a big deal to have the conversation with the community. This is, I think, a huge step for this community to be a better place for everyone. And I thank you for your willingness to both engage in this conversation as a council, but also your willingness to vote for this to move it forward. So thank you. Okay, let's move it. Then I think now, looping back, we would go to citizen comment on non-agenda. This is item 7. This is an opportunity for individuals to approach council over which are not on the agenda, but over which we have purview. We would ask that, well, you'll have 3 minutes, and we would ask that you not be derogatory or inflammatory. I see one person, that would be Stacy Hammond.
Yeah, so just to Stacy Hammond, 308
Got it.
North Sampson
Yep.
Street. Just a quick response to Stacy Engel. I simply said that we should meet in the middle of the summer, not currently. I understand clearly that we can't meet right now. And to Mrs. Lamb, we are not necessarily not a marginalized citizen. Your assumption that I'm not a marginalized citizen is your own bias, okay? The assumption that everyone that opposes this would be a non-marginalized citizen is very narrow-minded, okay? Or that people that support it are marginalized citizens. That shows your own bias. But anyway, I'm here to speak about the EDA, which is another association that you have reached out, branched out in. You contract about $80,000 a year, and they are a corrupt, they are supposed to be nonpartisan in order to receive public funds. They are not. They are an extremely partisan organization. I have uncovered so much information, and I have filed my first ever lawsuit. Okay? And you continue to fund this organization. I ask you in writing, I spoke to Mr. Akers. I spoke and asked for you to cease contract with them because of their conduct. And you refuse that. And now, for the first time ever, I have filed suit, and I will continue and pursue that case to the fullest extent to ensure that this public's tax dollars do not go to any nonpartisan organization that uses it for partisan reasons. Clearly, the committee you just voted on is going to be that same thing. If that is not black and white, it is like, no kidding. This is not going to help. This is not going to bridge gaps. Bridging gaps, okay, is to not have the kind of perspectives that were just brought up. That because I don't support something, that I am not a marginalized citizen. You have no idea. I have 2 severely disabled children in my house right now, which is one of the people that you're supposed to reach out to or to help. It's not just about other things, right? It was a multitude of things. So to assume that you know me or my family structure is ridiculous also. It just continues to show division, your desire for division, actually. And my hope is that this will actually stop, because this community is going to pay heavily financially for it. I will not cease. And I know there's people behind me that are not going to allow you to continue to use our money against us, weaponized against the people. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Shayna Kessler's hand up.
Hi. So I would like to bring it to the council's attention that
I kind of, again, just name and address again, Shayna, please, because we're in a
Shayna
different
Kessler
section.
at 1508 North B Street.
Thank you.
I would like to bring it to the council's attention that the Ellensburg Police Department has sought fit to fine several members of our community, including minors, for their use of washable chalk on public streetways earlier this summer, which is a violation of their First Amendment rights to free expression and free speech, and has also been an issue that was addressed in SELA as potentially unconstitutional, with a lawsuit pending against their city council. So I wanted to put that on your radar because I'm assuming that you are not aware of it at this point in time. But several members of our community have been targeted by Ellensburg police because they sought fit to use chalk on public spaces.
Great. Thank you. And just a note, I didn't note also, but council will not take action on anything that's brought before us tonight that's a non-agenda item. And I see so Landis Hansen.
Yeah, so for, can y'all hear me again? Sorry.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, 1015 East 18th Avenue, Ellensburg.
Thank you.
In response to whoever spoke before Shayna, if you are under the assumption that racial equity is somehow partisan, I would highly recommend that you analyze your own biases. And that goes for all those in the community that view this literally just investigating how we can go about making sure that everybody in the community feels welcome. If that is somehow partisan, which I don't see it as, you know, maybe I'm out of my mind here, but I think that everybody being welcome would actually improve our economy by people who do feel marginalized not wanting to move back to the west side. Yeah, that's all I really have. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to caution folks, this is for non-agenda items. We had the opportunity for discussion and public comment when we were doing the previous agenda item. So I would just ask that if you have specifics, both Stacy and Shayna had different items that they brought before us for during the non-agenda. So, but thank you. Thanks for your input, Landis. I've got Teresa Plu.
Hello, Teresa Plu, 140 Woodhouse Loop. I'm a little confused on what I can talk about now or not. I look at equity. It says is making sure everyone can get there. Oftentimes it's used interchangeable with equality, and I'm still confused about the difference. For instance, I represented a student with disabilities covered under the American Disability Act at CWU recently. And they described it within the disability department, the accommodations department, forget the name.
Okay, so Teresa, if I may, if this is going to speak to the diversity equity initiative, then that's a piece that was already on the agenda. This is for an opportunity for people who have a non-agenda item.
So I guess my question is, was Stacy's comments, was that related to the topic that's forbidden?
So that was during our discussion and council discussion. So if you have something that's not on the agenda that you'd like to bring before us, this is the opportunity to do so.
Okay, but not a statement on what's the difference between equity and equality that gets talked about someplace else.
We're not, no.
Okay.
That was an agenda item.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Bye.
No, it's good. So we've got Iris.
Hi, this is Corey Knoyer. I'm just using Iris's computer, but I live at 316 East 4th Avenue, apartment 4, here in Ellensburg, Washington. And as far as non-agenda issues go, I also want to address Ellensburg Police Department and their annual report, because their annual report, as it's released every single year, has a designation for the 0.3% tax, right, which has been levied against us as citizens and goes to quote unquote criminal justice issues. However, when you look at the actual report given out by Ellensburg Police Department, they, in this last report, made $1.1 million from that tax. But when you look at what they put themselves on the annual report, only like 600,000 is accounted for. So my question is, where is the $493,294 going? And why is the Ellensburg Police Department not putting that on their annual report? Because especially in a time where we're talking about equity, diversity, and especially police brutality and accountability, it doesn't sound like we're really very much holding our police department accountable if that particular area of their funds is opaque or obfuscated or hidden from us somewhere else in another report that is, I don't know, rather clandestine. So that's what I would want to bring first and foremost, is to this annual report that seems to be hiding money that, you know, is levied from us as citizens. I also want to bring up and reiterate the kind of lopsided justice in this town, because as a member or as an activist here that has in fact been prosecuted or at least served papers for the use of chalk in this town, it's frankly absurd that we can have, you know, citizens such as myself and minors charged for chalk use and a First Amendment right, and yet the opposition can burn rubber and cause week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks skid marks all down the street and not be charged or served. And how much time do I have left?
You have 35 seconds.
All right, and I guess I want to bring this up too, because if we look at where we started with this whole thing and the BLM or Black Lives Matter mural and the city prosecutor postponing or stopping that because of quote unquote liability issues, why is it that he has time to stop a Black Lives Matter mural and not essentially do his job, charging those who deface it, when there are, you know, why does he have time to, you know, charge people for using chalk? I guess that's kind of where the lopsided justice is. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. And so let's see, we've got Teresa's back in the queue here.
Let's see, can you hear me? Teresa
Yep.
Plu, 140 Woodhouse Loop. Okay, I stood with the elderly veterans on the street corner in the middle of the day because they wanted to be out there and they wanted to do their thing as veterans. And I didn't know of any complaints about chalking. There was discussion about respect for one another as the veterans were there. Perhaps they wanted to write their own stuff, and there was an outreach for people to clean up what they wrote there, just out of respect for the old veterans. There were permanent things that were put in the middle of the street that Ellensburg Police Department seemed to be concerned about because they were permanent, more like maybe the rubber tracks permanent. And so chalk wasn't bad. Some of the messages towards the Ellensburg Police Department were kind of rank. But hey, I just wanted to say that little bit of history. It seemed like it was going well.
Okay, folks, we're not going to get into a conversation on what occurred or didn't occur around protests or not protests. This again is for a non-agenda. This is an opportunity for individuals to bring something to us that is of concern to them that is not on this agenda. I would appreciate that we not respond to previous speakers' issues or concerns. Confine ourselves simply to providing us information about a non-agenda item.
Wasn't that information or non-agenda?
Well, we're all working this through as we go here. Shana, do you have something that does not speak to what we have already heard or to what you already presented? This is done.
Yes, I wanted to address it's technically not something we've talked about yet. It's coming up later, I believe, in the agenda packet, but I will not be here for it. So I wanted to try to get this on the record. Ellensburg Police is requesting additional funding. And as it's already been mentioned, there is already misuse of funds.
Okay, first of all, that's on the agenda. Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're stopping this now. If you've had the opportunity to speak, you've spoken. This is an opportunity really for individuals to come before us with specific. It is not a forum for discussion. So we're moving on in the agenda. That would bring us then, we have no business this evening requiring public hearings. We're now moving to 9A. This is ordinance 4864, the biennial budget ordinance.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Keith Bassett with the city's finance department. The 2021-2022 biennial budget ordinance has been prepared for second reading and adoption. To recap the council process up until now, since the beginning of October, this budget has been before council 4 times, including 3 public hearings covering revenue estimates, expenditure estimates, and programs contained in the proposed budget, and the complete preliminary budget. At your last meeting, you conducted first reading of the ordinance. The 2021-2022 biennial budget ordinance, once adopted, would establish the appropriations and positions necessary to authorize the expenditures for each of the city's funds. The budget anticipates a return to pre-COVID service levels within the biennium, makes targeted investments in council priorities, and maintains fund balances within policy targets. The details of budget enhancements are identified on Table 1 of the agenda report packet, which the section begins around page 144. The positions in FTE in the budget are listed in Exhibit C, and the tabular budget by fund are listed in Exhibits A and B. Staff recommends conducting second reading and adoption of Ordinance 4864, adopting the 2021-2022 biennial budget.
Great, thank you. Council.
I'll move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4864.
Second.
We have a motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4864, the 2021-2022 biennial budget ordinance. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute, that's
Mr. Mayor, we need a roll call.
it's a roll call. I'm sorry, please, folks. I get it.
Aye.
Goodlow? Aye.
Lamb.
Aye.
Lilquist.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Tab.
Aye, that motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, adopting the 2021-2022 biennial budget for the City of Ellensburg, Washington.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, I know you've said this before, but I just want to thank our finance department. I think we've all had to deal with COVID challenges, but from a financial management perspective, it's unbelievable really what I think they've done with what they've had to deal with. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you. That moves us then to 9B. We're on page 163 in your packet. This is ordinance 4865, the second reading also.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director. Ordinance 3281 established a deferred compensation plan and trust to provide deferred compensation as a benefit to eligible employees and their beneficiaries. There is a deferred compensation plan committee, which consists of 3 persons appointed by the city manager. The committee members administer the deferred compensation plans. Current city code lists Great West Assurance Company and ICMA Retirement Trust as administrative agents for the plan. However, over the years, Great West Life Assurance Company has changed to Empower Retirement, and the city has added the Washington State Department of Retirement Systems Deferred Comp Plan, or DCP, to our agent list. Council gave first reading to ordinance 4865 at the November 16th, 2020 meeting. Ordinance 4865 amends Ellensburg City Code to allow for changes in the names of the administrative agents for the plan, as well as additional administrative agents approved by the Deferred Compensation Committee. Ordinance 4865 also amends Ellensburg City Code Section 2.32.160 and repeals Section 2.32.200 to allow for changes in accounting policies and definitions in which the word fund is used. Staff recommends council conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4865, amending Ellensburg City Code Chapter 2.32 and repealing Ellensburg City Code Section 2.32.200.
Great, thank you. Council.
I'll move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4865.
Second.
We have a motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4865. Any further discussion? If the clerk would call the roll.
Engel. Aye. Goodlow.
Aye.
Lamb.
Aye.
Lilquist.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Tab.
Aye. Motion passes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to Title II Management and Finance and amending sections 2.32.040 and 2.32.160 and repealing sections 2.32.200 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Great, thank you. That's why I didn't repeat the motion. That brings us to 9C. We're at page 168.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and Council. Keith Bassett with the city's finance department. The proposed ordinance adopts amendments to the 2019-2020 biennial budget for 3 general purposes. First, to reflect changes in operational requirements and adjustments to capital projects plans approved through prior council action. Among these items are budget adjustments for the North Campus signalization project, Core Street electrical feeder infrastructure installation, and adjustments to the budget for the field light purchase at Rotary Park through the Park Acquisition Fund. these are items that come before you at each meeting and require additional budget adjustments and are brought forward as part of a supplemental budget ordinance as we move through the budget year. Second, many of the adjustments are changes to city operations and capital projects necessitated by the council declared COVID-19 emergency. This includes the addition of COVID-related grant funding, including in the transit fund and across the city's general fund operations. Also includes changes to city operations, including temporary closure of facilities, modifications to staffing levels, and changes to the schedule for capital projects for 2020. As COVID rippled across the country and through the community, operations to city changes to city operations did have an impact to how money would be spent of the city. And this budget tries to reflect not only what sort of impact we had from a revenue side, but also what sort of changes would be necessary to accommodate all of the impacts through the budgetary process. And third, there are a few other necessary modifications, including budget adjustments to fund known leave payouts and other external changes to personnel costs, and carry forward a previously approved expenditure authority budget for maintenance at the Kittitas Valley Memorial Pool and Fitness Center that wasn't spent in the prior year, but was not carried forward during the last supplemental budget. All of the items in the supplemental budget are listed on table 1 of the agenda packet. The net impact across all city funds decreases the budgeted 2020 expenditures by approximately $11 million. Again, that's across every city fund. A lot of that has to do with the timing of capital projects and in many cases impacted by COVID. Staff recommends conducting first reading of the proposed ordinance amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget.
Great, thank you. Council.
I move that we conduct first reading of ordinance 4866, amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4866, amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget. Further discussion?
I did have a request of staff. I always really appreciate when the finance department highlights, just like Keith Bassett did, the previous council action, like you mentioned, the park lights and all the things that are contributing to these amendments. But it is sometimes hard for me to track on the table itself specifically where the amendments are. So I don't know what I don't want to create an undue burden, but what the least burdensome way to either just post the previous ones so I can compare changes or highlight, or I don't know the best way to do that. So I just wanted to, I guess, make that request, but Keith, maybe you can just email me and teach me.
Yes, so staff would be happy to help with any process for changing the format of this or providing additional detail or explanation. We do try to get to that information through table 1 with the comparison of the two budgets, but absolutely, let me know what would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other comments?
So, yeah, so I heard you say the budget is reduced by $11 million. So I see that on the expenditure line, but it was all the revenue side of it compensates, or is that the revenue was also reduced by $5 million to total? See, I don't know. So the grand total looks like it's $17 million up. Is that, can you help me sort that out?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council Member Lillquist, yes, absolutely. We are in a situation where we are seeing the carry forward of beginning fund balance from 2019 being impacted to this 2020 budget. We are also seeing the estimated impacts to revenues from COVID-19, as well as just an overall refinement as we get further through the year. We're able to have more detail of what that estimate would be. There's a decrease in revenue, and then a decrease in expenditures greater than the decrease in revenue. And so the impact appears to be savings. In reality, much of that is capital projects, as well as operations that simply did not happen, services that were not able to be provided, which does result in expenditures that did not occur, the curtailment of operations. So we are looking at additional ending fund balance citywide.
Okay, I didn't want everyone go away and think that we were $11 million in the hole, and that's not what's reflected here. Is we're actually doing pretty well with our ending fund balance.
Yes, ending fund balance, individual funds, it's difficult to generalize across the city. Even one capital project is larger than some operating budgets for certain functions of the city, and so how to thread the needle on the generalization versus the specific impact to individual departments or operations is always a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion or questions? So we do have a motion and second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4866. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye. That motion carries. If the clerk would read the ordinance.
An ordinance amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget of the city of Ellensburg as set forth in ordinance number 4815 and subsequently amended as set forth in ordinance 4831, ordinance number 4841, and ordinance number 4852 to adjust appropriations to this in the city's funds.
Thank you. You get points for being able to do that after an hour and a half of this.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
That brings us then to a resolution. This is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2020 bad debt.
Erica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg again. The proposed resolution before you authorizes the write-off of uncollectible utility accounts, miscellaneous invoices, parking citations, and library accounts for fiscal year 2020. Annually, the council considers the write-off of accounts deemed uncollectible. The city contracts with Merchants Credit Association, or MCA, for collection services. MCA has determined that the accounts included, except for library accounts under $100, are uncollectible due to the statute of limitation, death, or bankruptcy. The library uses Unique as their collection agency. The library considers outstanding amounts uncollectible for patrons who have not been responsive to Unique's collection attempts and have not used their library card in the past 2 years. In 2017, the library began sending any amounts over $100 to MCA prior to writing them off. Therefore, the write-off balances amounts for the library only include accounts with balances between $25 and $100 unless they've been deemed uncollectible by MCA. The amounts to be considered for 2020 are as follows. Utility accounts totaling $60,376.36. This is approximately 200 accounts with an average balance of $301 each, and most all of these accounts are from 2014. Miscellaneous invoices in the amount of $1,702.83. Parking citations totaling $2,605.47, and library accounts totaling $2,746.70. Writing off the uncollectible balances will reduce revenues that have not yet been recorded by a total of $67,431.36. Staff recommends council consider adoption of the proposed resolution writing off the uncollectible delinquent accounts totaling $67,431.36.
Thank you. Council.
I had a question. was just curious on the utility for Jerica. So the majority of the 2020 write-off is attributed to 2014 accounts, you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to think back what was going on in 2014. So we were pulling out of the recession, so that wasn't the worst of that. So it's a 50%, roughly 50% increase over 2019. Was there something particular that?
I think we got a lot because we began in 2016, I believe, with MCA. We got a lot of these old 2014 collection accounts from our previous collection services. And by the time MCA had gotten them, when you're a couple years down the road, it's kind of late to really try to collect now. So now this group of utility accounts has gone beyond the statute of limitations, which is why we're unable to collect them now. So I think it has a little bit to do with the work that was maybe done originally by the previous collections service in 2015.
Okay, so that would suggest that once after, maybe this is not necessarily by itself an indication of a trend, but it's just a reflection of some changes that were handled internally.
Yes, I believe so.
And not part of this conversation, but is it likely that we're going to be seeing some future significant write-offs on utilities?
I would believe so. Probably due to COVID, we won't see those write-offs till quite a ways down the line, because our credit agent will try to collect against them at least for 6 years, but we will probably have an increase in bankruptcies and other things that may start seeing as early as next year in our write-offs.
Okay, thank you.
So, Jerica, is 6 years the statute of limitations?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add regarding the utilities, the Utility Advisory Committee received a report that showed, like, in 2019, there was 27 accounts that were past 90 days due, and this year there's 500. So that's kind of the scale of what we're looking at right now in terms of people behind on their utility payments.
Yep.
Jerica, can you give me an example of miscellaneous invoices?
A lot of times what the miscellaneous invoices are that we see is in cases where somebody may have been in an accident, say, and damaged a light pole, or they have some sort of fine for that, and we sometimes have difficulty tracking them down or collecting from them afterwards.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, we do, can we get a motion then for resolution 2020-34 for the 2020 debt write-off?
So move.
I'll second.
We have a motion second to approve, excuse me? I thought I heard something. We have a motion second to approve resolution 2020-34, the write-off of bad debt for year 2020. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. That brings us to 2021 pay plan resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're on 9E.
E.
Oh, did what I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. You know, and I've been sitting here, Paul, thinking like you hung out for a sole source of wood electrical utility poles. I'm so sorry.
Paul, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're muted still, bud.
Sorry,
There we
is
go.
that?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Council. This is Paul Meyer with the City Light Department. I brought to you a resolution to sole source the purchase of wood electrical utility poles. The Light Department regularly purchases electrical utility poles as part of its normal operations. Historically, we've been able to get quotes and bids from 4 different suppliers. Unfortunately, recently the market has changed and we've only been able to get quotes and bids from a single supplier over the last couple years or so. So I have created this resolution to sole source. This resolution did go to UAC and received a favorable recommendation. So I would ask that you adopt the attached resolution establishing Stella Jones Corporation as the sole source supplier for butt-treated Western red cedar wood electrical utility poles.
Great, thank you. Council.
I'll move to approve resolution 2020-35.
Second.
We have motion second to approve resolution 2020-35, waiving the competitive bid requirements for the purchase of wood electrical utility poles for use within the electric division of Public Works and Utilities Department. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
That brings us, now it brings us to 9F. This is the 2021 pay plan resolution. We're on page 184 if anybody's still following in your packets.
Good evening, council and city manager, or excuse me, mayor. Cindy Smith, HR Director for the City of Ellensburg. Before you is the proposed 2021 pay plan resolution. Due to the ongoing uncertainty regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic impact for the city is unknown. The non-represented employees will not receive an adjusted pay rate for the 2021 budget year as established in the proposed 21-22 budget ordinance being considered for final adoption for this in this meeting. Staff recommends that the adoption of the pay resolution established for the 2021 pay plan.
Thanks, council.
Cindy, I had a question for you. So is it, I'm understanding this, that this is, the pay range is the same as it was in the previous year?
Correct.
Okay. So there's no changes. This is just kind of an extension.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll move adoption of resolution 2020-36.
Second.
Second.
So we have motion and second to adopt resolution 2020-36, adopting the pay plan as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Now we're down. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to thank the unrepresented employees for taking a year off on raises, and hopefully we can make that up at some point when times are rosier.
So let's move on to 11A. We're at page 222 in our packet. This is approval of the Ellensburg Arts Commission 2021 grant awards.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Josephine Camarillo, Library Director and Interim Staff Liaison to the Arts Commission. As part of
an emphasis on interim.
Interim, yes. As part of the Ellensburg Arts Commission annual spending plan, a call was put out to fund organizations and individuals for projects that would advance the arts in our community. Grant cycle closed on October 31st with 14 applications received. The Arts Commission reviewed, discussed, and scored each applicant and would like to recommend the following 11 grant awards for council consideration for fiscal year 2021. Confab Gallery 1, 2,500. Steadfast Tin Soldier, Blue Bear Puppet Lab, 2,500. Visual Poetry Exhibition and Poetry Reading, Joanna Thomas, 2,500. 2021 VMT Rising Stars Show, Valley Musical Theater, 2,000. Killdeer String Band Recording, Killdeer String Band, 1,400. Interactive 16-foot board game, CWU Student Art Club, 2,500. Ellensburg Virtual Choirs, Make Music Ellensburg, 1,300. Ellensburg Big Band Virtual Performance, Ellensburg Big Band, 2,500. Uncultivated Renee Adams, 2,500. Virtual Benefit Choral Concert, Lee Bates, 700. And the Nutcracker Ballet 2021 Ellensburg Dance Ensemble, 2,500. The total amount of recommended award funding is $22,900.
Great, thank you. Council.
I move approval of the Ellensburg Arts Commission 2021 grant award recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the 2021 Ellensburg Arts Commission grant recommendations as presented in our packet for a total award amount of $22,900. Any further discussion?
They look like a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to.
They're going to make it great for next year.
Further discussion? Just again, Josephine, thank you for kind of supporting and coordinating, and certainly the Arts Commission for going through the grants and making these recommendations. So with that, we have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye. That motion carries. That brings us then to 11B, Creative Sector Grant Funding. This is the second round. We're on page 263 in your packet.
At the June 11th Arts Commission meeting, members voted to allocate up to $60,000 of the city arts acquisition funds to artists and art organizations impacted financially by COVID-19. On September 8th, Council approved 17 applicants for a total of $40,114. On October 8th, the Arts Commission approved opening a second round of applications. One application was received. The Arts Commission recommends City Council approve the following individual applicant, Austin Smith, for the amount of $2,500.
Great, thank you. Council?
I'll move to approve the Arts Commission recommendation for the Creative Sector Grant Funding second round and approve the necessary budget adjustments.
Second.
There a motion second to approve the Arts Commission's recommendation for what was it, Creative Sector Grant Funding second, and approve the necessary budget adjustments. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then that brings us to 11C. We're at page 267 in our packet. This is the Affordable Housing Agreement between City of Ellensburg and Hope Source.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is Jamie Ailing with the Community Development Department. And what I have before you this evening is a request to have the council authorize the city manager to execute the Addison Place agreement for affordable housing contract with Hope Source in the amount of $373,000. This is a culmination of efforts dating all the way back to November of 2017 when the voters approved the sales tax increase for housing and related services. And back in September of 2019, Hope Source submitted an application that demonstrated the ability to provide 5 housing units dedicated to seniors who make less than 60% AMI. That was through a RFP process, and the Affordable Housing Commission recommended to you as the council that they recommended that the council award funding and distribute the funds for this project. Council affirmed that back in December of 2019 and directed staff to create a contract. Staff created that contract, worked with outside legal counsel to develop a contract for this project. And the contract that we have come up with has gone back and forth between our legal counsel and Hope Source's legal counsel, has now been signed by Hope Source. And that contract does assure that it is in the vital and best interest of the city and the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city, and in accord with the public purposes, provisions, and applicable federal, state, and local laws and requirements. The contract includes various maintenance and property management requirements and provides that the units meet affordability requirements for the next 50 years minimum. This is a very exciting opportunity for the city. This is going to be the first contract of its kind for affordable housing and will serve as a template for future projects. It is a rather lengthy contract, but it is complete and one that we are happy to work with Hope Source in cutting into some of our housing crisis that we seem to have. So with that, staff would recommend that the council authorize the city manager to execute the agreement as presented in your packet. It was so large, we had to create a separate link rather than lengthening your packet by another 140 pages.
Thank you. Council.
I move that we adopt or authorize the city manager to execute the Addison Place Agreement, affordable housing contract with Hope Source in the amount of $373,000.
Second.
We have a motion second to authorize the city manager to execute the Addison Place Agreement for affordable housing contract with Hope Source in the amount of $373,000. Further discussion?
I'm very excited about this.
Well, Nancy needs to take some kind of credit. I mean, she sat through all of the crap that got us to the point where we got this going. I also, I've got to recognize Jamie and Kirsten's work, as well as Terry's, in really getting this contract put together. Jamie is understating the amount of work it took to get to the point where we have this contract here and ready for signature. But it is still exciting, and I'm really pleased that we're able to move forward and partner with Hope Source and get this project going. I'll also indicate to council that the Affordable Housing Commission met, and there will be another recommended project coming forward, hopefully at the meeting on the 21st.
Great.
So we do have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so believe it or not, that brings us to the manager's report. I do believe we need an executive session this evening. So we'll do the manager's report, hopefully brief council member reports, and then have a 5-minute or so executive session.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the Public Works staff have requested that you schedule a public hearing for your next regular meeting on December 21st to consider amendments to the 2021-2026 six-year transportation improvement plan. The purpose of the amendment is to move the needle on a project that's been included in the plan as unfunded, based on the fact that the staff was successful in bringing money from the Transportation Improvement Board to the project. The project is for the construction of signalization at the intersection of 14th Avenue and Alder Street, and the completion of the south link of the Cascade to Palouse Trail, which currently terminates at 14th Avenue. This would build it from 14th Avenue to its connection with the trail on the Kittitas County Event Center at the rodeo grounds. So with that, the action that's being requested of you is to set the public hearing.
Council?
I'll move to set a public hearing for the update of the 2021-2026 six-year transportation improvement plan for December 21st, 2020.
Second.
A motion second to set a public hearing for the meeting on December 21st to update this 2021-2026 six-year transportation improvement plan. Further discussion?
This
Only
is a
to
very
say-
exciting project.
Oh, I was just going to say, man, this is like good
Yeah.
stuff, really. Any further discussion? It doesn't seem
We
as
have
if there'll
great
be a lot.
staff.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a lot of council resistance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Anything else?
Just the last item, you alluded to an exec session. We do need a session under the authority of RCW 4230-140 to consider collective bargaining session with employee organizations and contract negotiations with the same. We anticipate approximately 5 minutes for that discussion, and no action is anticipated.
Great, thank you. So we'll do council reports. David, you want to start?
Yes, I can. No report.
That was brief.
Thank
Kristen?
Attended the EMS and Trauma Care Council. They brought on some new staff, which is great. They do a lot of work. End of report.
Thank you. You're starting to sound like Dr. Larson with that end of report thing. Stacy?
I started that. Just he said for me. I just want everyone to know. He knows it. Now everyone knows.
Stacy?
She threw me off my game. I attended a planning commission meeting, and I wish the minutes were able to get to you guys more quickly than they do. But I am excited that they took action that I think in the end is going to help create housing for this community. So I was excited to see that.
Great, thanks. Nancy? Look. Huh?
Oh, you want to go first, Nancy L? Nancy
Stacey, were you
1 or
done?
Nancy 2?
I don't care.
Well, I'll go
Go ahead,
first.
Nancy. Yeah.
All right, I've attended a meeting, second meeting of the Not in Our Kitco discussions about reorganizing that and revitalizing that organization. We're in the process of talking about a mission statement. That's what we're doing right now. Worked on this IDEC subcommittee report. The only other thing I has is the Community Recovery Fund Distribution Committee continues to operate. We started in September. I think it's when we got wonderful donation from the community of, I think we started with about $28,000. And we're down with the allocations we made last week. We're probably getting close to maybe $10,000, between 10 and 12,000. So we're talking about another campaign to raise funds. Our charter is a 2-year charter, so we're assuming we will go for 2 years. But it may be that I need to have a conversation with Mayor Tab about that and see what the rest of the community support groups are thinking about that. And we can do that at a different time.
It's certainly been a great resource. Nancy, are you good, Nancy?
Yep,
Nancy,
thank you.
Nancy Loquist.
Just on the Airport Advisory Commission, that will be reconstituted to a 7-member commission or committee. The city does not have a dedicated position in the new advisory commission, and I have applied to be on it, but I guess whatever the Board of County Commissioners decides. Also, we had a Utility Advisory Commission meeting. There was a report on city fiber, which we haven't talked about much recently. If you want that update, it is on that agenda. There's a slideshow on the agenda for the November UAC meeting, as well as information that was reported to the state about the low income energy assistance survey, which looked painstakingly difficult to interpret and enter, and it took our staff a lot of time to complete that report for the state, as is mandated by the Clean Energy Transformation Law. And that's it, all I have.
Great, thank you. I might ask John, maybe if we could get that the presentation to UAC on fiber out to council, because I believe that Centrifuge is doing some work around fiber capacity. So it might be good for council to have that background of what was presented.
I'll get that link out tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
And I have a question for Nancy.
Hey.
How many people are on the airport board now? Do you know what the panel looks like?
I forget what the current number is. It's like 12 or 15 or something. It's quite a few. And
What's
they
it
just-
going down to? Was
Seven.
it 7? Okay. I missed that.
Did they designate?
No,
one
it's
pilot?
just,
Okay.
it's just kind of broad categories. It would be, the new charter would say something about, we want people from these areas, which are the representation that are currently on it. A pilot, someone from the city economic development, a leasee tenant type, that mix, but it just leaves it to the commissioners to make sure that mix gets done
Okay.
rather than allocating specific categories.
That's good.
Hey, Bruce, could I throw in one more thing? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, my day job, I have knowledge that our sub-consultant that is doing the airport strategic plan is working with the stakeholder group, and they prepared a SWOT analysis worksheet, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. They've extended their deadline. I just want to point out for Nancy's benefit, and if you can spread the word to anyone you know who's sharing that responsibility. The response level was very low, and frankly,
I did mine.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we did. Yeah. So, I think it's busy time of year, but the consultant that we brought in to do that work from Colorado has extended the deadline, but not by much. So just spread the word. Can't have public input without public input.
Is there a link to that? Sir, is it a
It's not
survey?
it's not a public survey. It's for the stakeholder group that was assembled by the commissioners for the airport strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Okay, we good, Nancy? What?
I'm done.
I forgot to confirm that our meetings, the second meeting in January and February, are on Tuesday, right?
I would have to look at the calendar. I don't know. Well, I mean, the Martin Luther King thing is always, that would typically be a Tuesday. I don't know what the first one of the year is.
First one would be on the first Monday, because the first is a Friday.
Okay, so yeah.
We'll be on the 4th.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha.
That was helpful. Okay, so let's, just a couple things. I did some preliminary meetings with Cindy Smith and with Terry to kind of map out a strategy for doing the search for the city manager position. Cindy did actually quite a bit of legwork to determine there were really two options in front of us. One was to kind of do it in-house, and the other would be to go to a professional search firm that targets candidates who are and screens. The direction we're going at this point is to move forward with the contract with Prothman. Actually, Mary worked on the selection committee for the 911, was very impressed. Part of Cindy's role in this was really going to her peers and kind of vetting. There are really two professional search firms. Prothman clearly came up higher. The amount is budgeted and still within signatory authority for the city manager to sign that contract. So this is really just kind of letting folks know that we're going to move forward with getting that going. They'll begin the listing in January, do the screening through February, and then we'll move to the interview process and selection process in March. Is fundamentally the outline that's there at this point. I think what I would like to do, I know that Mary has expressed an interest, as Tristan and Nancy Goodlow. Tristan, if you're still willing to work on that committee, I would like that, I would ask that the three of us, Mary Morgan, yourself, and I, become that committee that would do the initial screening. Ultimately, council will be involved in, obviously be involved in the overall selection process. But if council's good with that, we'll just do that. I don't anticipate that committee really will start doing a lot of work until the end of February, beginning of March, when Prothman brings us really it's kind of estimated to be about 10 stronger candidates, and then we'll do winnowing out from there. So if that still works, let's move forward with that. The other piece I wanted to make sure that folks had a chance to look through, and half thinking that it would be worth putting a letter together. But if you happen to look at I know we heard some issues around EPD earlier, but the accreditation report in the consent agenda was pretty exceptional. I think the chief pointed out that we're one of 57 departments in the state of Washington that even get the accreditation. Having been in an organization that was accredited and having done accreditations of other organizations, to go through an accreditation with only recommendations, no findings, no plan of correction, particularly given the breadth of what was covered, is really truly exceptional. And if with council's agreement or consent, I'll just, I've already emailed the chief and Captain Weed, but I would suggest that we put something on letterhead that recognizes the work for everyone in the department, because it was really quite an exceptional report.
Yeah.
You're good? Okay, so I'll work.
I
yeah.
agree. And I guess I would ask if there was a way to maybe do a brief presentation sometime when we don't have quite so much on our agenda.
Yeah.
A slideshow, because I think the public needs to know exactly how much our police department is doing with training, with everything.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. And typically, and maybe John, we can do it. I know when we would receive our you get the accreditation documentation. Maybe when we receive that from the accreditation agency, that would be the framework for both recognition there and maybe doing a bit more in detail on what we're doing.
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
we'll be glad to get that on a future agenda. The only reason it wasn't on the regular agenda tonight is because I knew that it was going to be 10 o'clock when we finished, and it would have been 11 o'clock when we finished if we.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, but I just want, yeah, no, I really do, but I do want to make sure that folks are aware that we are aware of the accreditation process, and not just the process, but how the department how it made it through that review.
We'll get that scheduled.
Thanks. Okay, so now Terry and John, I might need some. So I believe what we need now to do is leave this meeting. Is that what happens? You should have a link from the city attorney that would get us into the executive session.
That's correct.
That'll be in your emails. Jump onto that. We'll be going into that for 5 minutes. I forget, it's RCW 4320-20. Is that around collective bargaining? No action. We will be in for 5 minutes. No actions anticipated.
We have a 3-minute break.
Can we have a 3-minute break? We can have a 3-minute break. Yes. Yes.
Appreciated.
Mayor Tab, are you going to give any update on the special meeting we had and the letter you drafted?
I could quickly. I mean, which special meeting? The central? Or
no,
the county, the letter we sent.
The COVID.
Oh yeah. So, well, yeah. I mean, I think it was in Friday mail, but I mean, we did send the letter. It was signed by the mayors of Kittitas and Cle Elum. Lori did a great job of coordinating the signatures so we could get it out. We have no response in the world in which we operate, though. Subsequent to that letter going in, we have about a monthly mayor's meeting of Central Washington with the governor's office. really the challenge is the numbers that Dr. Larson spoke to in terms of the metrics that we're dealing with at this point, and that every other community in Central Washington believes that they're in exactly the same spot as we, whether it's Yakima or Chelan Douglas. So we didn't get a response. I think the positive, the other response we did get, and I'm going to bring this up. I'm doing legislative day on Thursday with the chamber. Is Senator Warnick and our legislative delegation actually responded to the request to look into the flexibility around lodging tax and the rural sales tax, and are asking their policy staff to look at the possibilities of potentially modifying that language. So because we also copied them on the letter and sort of just gave them some context. So thanks for bringing that up.
Hey,
Yeah,
Bruce.
that would be huge.
Hey, Bruce, one last thing, real quick. Sorry, I forgot to do this. I want to give a shout out to our own John Morrow, city employee. He, as some may know, he was recently appointed to the rodeo board. So I think it's terrific whenever, people ask about what people in our community do in the community. I think it's a great example of someone who's giving back, and everyone who's worked with John knows he does a lot. So congratulations to John. I think that's
Yep. No, that's great. No, thanks, David. That's great. I didn't know that. Okay, so let's see, what are we at? It's 9:55. You want to reconvene right at 10 o'clock and then do our 5-minute. So we'll have a 5-minute break. Come back at 10 in our exec.
That's good.
Thank you.
Hi. Hmm.